Aloha, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this Q&A panel for The Throwaway Horses, the film developed by these lovely people here. So if you don't mind, if you could please introduce yourself and say a little bit about your feature in case someone hasn't quite seen it yet.
My name is Teresa Demarest, and I'm the one of the executive producers, director, editor. At uh, independent films, people take on multiple roles, but those were my main roles. And the movie is about was geared. We tried to gear it directed toward people who have never been around horses before, because people don't really know what's going on with horses. So we directed the film. We followed six horses, and we've discovered that one wonderful thing is that people go, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know that. Oh my gosh, I didn't know that. Oh my gosh, people know about cats and dogs, but they don't know about horses." And so we followed six horses from the racing industry, from private ownership, from small rescues, larger rescues. Um, and also we have Joanna Grossman here from the Animal Welfare Institute, who can talk about what's happening with horse legislation and what happens to horses. People just don't know what's going on. And so that's what our movie is geared to inform them what's happening with horses in America today.
Okay,
Hi,
wonderful.
everyone. Hi, I'm happy to introduce myself. Yeah, thank you, Teresa. It was really a privilege to be a part of the incredible film that you made. My name is Joanna Grossman. I am the Equine Program Director for the Animal Welfare Institute in Washington, D.C. We're one of the nation's oldest animal protection groups, and years ago started the national campaign to end the slaughter of American horses for human consumption, which has been an ongoing problem. We work on a wide range of equine issues at AWI, both wild and domestic. But yeah, in terms of the film, Throwaway Horses just does, I think, a tremendous job of showcasing the life-saving work that equine rescues do day in and day out. It's obviously very difficult and challenging, but important work that folks like Kim and so many others do in terms of that on-the-ground ability to help these horses who are at risk and often in some very dire situations. Um, AWI, we head up the Homes for Horses Coalition, which is a network of over 500 equine rescues and sanctuaries across the United States. We very much want to support the efforts, like I said, of these rescues, because there are so many situations of, whether it's cruelty, abuse, or neglect, or, other situations where, again, horses can kind of slip through the cracks and need kind of a helping hand. So that's a little bit about, I think what the film kind of tries to speak to and just does a tremendous job. So I hope everybody has a chance to see it. I'll turn it over to Kim.
Hi, my name's Kim Mosman. I'm the executive director of an organization called Sound Equine Options. We're based kind of in the greater Portland, Oregon metro area. And we came to be primarily my old employer. I used to manage a horse hospital, and we were seeing during the recession in '09, I think, a lot of people waiting too long to get care and just a lot of really tough situations. And when law enforcement would ask for our support, they could find people, but they didn't have the knowledge or the handling skills or any places for them to go or the budgets to take care of them. So our primary focus has been partnering with law enforcement on neglect and abuse cases so that they can remove those animals from that situation, or at least refer owners that are in need, that they go out on calls that they see, they can refer those to us. So it's been a journey, and it's been a learning process. But like Teresa said, a lot of people don't, they might know about racehorses or about Mustangs or about slaughter, but just even in our own local communities, there's so many horses that are getting less than the minimum standard of care. And I think one of the crises we're facing right now is an aging population of horse owners, which comes with financial problems and cognitive problems and those horses getting caught in that situation. So I love the movie because it talks about all kinds. I mean, obviously I love all kinds of horses, and there's so much need for different things within the horse rescue world. It's important just for people to understand what's happening.
Okay, fantastic. So thank you all for that. So let me ask you, what was the inspiration to create this film?
Um, I I was a critical care nurse for 30 years, retired, and I saw this ad in the paper and it said, "Do you love horses and would you like to learn to ride?" And I went, yeah. And so I went out to this barn, and it was the type of barn where you're supposed to pay a lot of money to have them train your horse to go and win a prize with a trophy. And I just fell in love with her. And I left that barn very quickly because I wanted to get to know my horse. And she's 23 now, and she's a very hot breed, half Arab and half saddlebred. People who watch the film, who know about horses, understand that this is a very athletic, very intelligent, and you and whose army horse. And I knew nothing. And so over a period of time, I had to learn her language. And in the process of learning her language and getting to know her better, I also met a lot of other horse people. I met racehorse people. I met mean owners, good owners, kind owners, owners that really didn't know what they were doing. And it just shocked me that you could go buy a horse off a racetrack for $1 and put it in your backyard and no one would blink an eye. But as we covered in our movie, there was a horse Raisin who was taken off of the racetrack, and he was born and raised in the racetrack, and she got him when he was about 3 or 4 years old because he was not a winner. He always went. He was a secondary, not a dominant horse, So he'd always come in second because the dominant horse would go, "I'm going to win this race," and he would kind of go, "Yeah, go ahead, it's fine." And you know, so he got sold. But when she brought him home, if he hears a loud sound, he's been raised when you hear a loud sound, you run as fast as you can and don't look back. And so I cover racehorses in because there were people who purchased horses that didn't know what to do with this horse. And then I also discovered mean people who were mean to their horses, who hit their horses. So anyway, because I'm a filmmaker, my previous film was Keiko the Untold Story and Star Free Willy. And in that movie, I followed the whale. And in this movie, I wanted to follow the horses and try to present to the public things as best I could from what I anthropomorphically thought was going on their mind. Horses are very sensitive. If you're standing near a horse and they slap you in the face with their tail, that's not an accident. They're doing that on purpose. It's a warning. And so I just was shocked at how people who were knowledgeable about horses didn't understand horse language, and I was trying to learn it. And I've had my horse for 23 years, and we're still having conversations that oh, okay, trying to learn her language. So I guess the reason I made the film was because I saw a lot of abuse, a lot of greatness, a lot of kindness, and I understood that people we're not riding the horses to the grocery store anymore. We're not using them on the farm for the most part. Uh, Most people, unless you own a horse, aren't don't really know what's going on with them. There are horse hoarders like cats and dogs, but there's no licensing, and Kim can talk about that. About we're trying to make it more possible, more if you purchase a horse, there are certain things that you have, certain skills that you have to um, be able to demonstrate. And I mean, one horse, I didn't know this, one horse requires a minimum of 3 acres, minimum of 3 acres, so that you don't destroy the land. You know, my current place has 70 acres, which is great for a very small number of horses, because it's also part of a, you know, a farm that grows walnuts and things for hazelnuts. And so we, you know, it's a large area where the horses can be. So I guess I just wanted people to know what was the average person to know what's going on.
Okay. Very good, very good. So, in the process of making this movie, how did you find all the subjects and experts that are shown in the movie?
Well, it's an organic thing. I met Kim, somebody, I let people know I wanted to do this movie, and one of the people in the film is from a local television station, and she knew about Kim Moselman and Sound Equine Options. And so I just went out to Kim and just started talking to her. And I followed things where they led me. Kim was the first, and her group was the first people I met. And as we interviewed um, Kim and where her people led us, um, I tend to want to follow things organically. So one thing led to another, and then we got referred to another location and another location, and we followed the horses and the people that were taking care of them.
Okay, no, great. So, um, sorry, there's a question here. So, did you storyboard or have short lists to create the film? And how did they evolve after filming? If they did, into something else?
Yes, we had a general idea of where we wanted to go. From Kim, we met horses that were the horses that you know, that were, Kim mostly does criminal um, investigations. And then I started interviewing the person whose barn I was at. And that led me to another place. So we had a general storyboard idea. We wanted to follow about 6 to 8 horses, and we ended up following, I believe, 6 horses. Um, and just I'm an organic filmmaker. We didn't. I say to people, one of my editors, I would call Excel spreadsheets. I would be called finger paints, and you have to put those two things together. So I want to follow where the paint is flowing after you throw it up on the wall. I want to see where it goes. And then I have people around me with an Excel spreadsheet going, well, now we have to do that. Oh yeah, we need to do that. That would, that would help things. So that's kind of how it happened as we followed the horses.
Okay, I mean, it worked. It was, from what I
Thank
got to
you.
see, very engaging. So
Thank
I
you.
like your methods. Um, so considering you're working with animals, were there any challenges that happened during the film or any surprises?
uh, well, I'm an experienced horse owner. I I I think the challenge is getting permission from people, particularly who are um, not treating their horses very well, getting permission to put them on the movie. Those were my challenges, weren't with the horses, it was with the people.
Well,
Always.
that's
And I
yes.
think for us as an organization, our challenge was, I was trying to, there's so many individual horse stories, but so many of the ones that we do are come in a case, like they're in protective custody and we can't show video, of where they came from until the case is done. So I think we lost a little bit of eventually someday we'll be able to tell that story a little bit more in detail, but some of these situations are pretty fragile. But I think she was able to pull a lot of the meaning out of that, even though they are a little difficult to tell.
I think one of the most difficult ones for us to do, if you want to know the truth, was an elderly gentleman in Eastern Oregon who, he was one of the top guys in his field, but he just got old, and he just started not being able to track his horses, and so we covered that whole story. Um, uh, and I think it's a very valuable story because like Kim said, there are people who are aging and they can't take care of their horses anymore. And what do we do about that? And so we talk about that at length in the movie.
Okay, next question is for our guests. Kim, Joanna, did you have any involvement in the creation of this film at all, or were you just resources for Teresa?
I think I think that it took a while. We had COVID, right? So like Teresa said, she was filming different stories because that was one of my questions when we first started is like, what do you see this as? And I think there are so many facets to why horses are in trouble, so many different tracks. Um, like if I could suggest somebody, to talk to someone, but I think actually she went out and got a lot of stories from kind of the right angles and the right groups. So I don't, yeah, she was in charge. She was the master in charge of the storyboarding part of it. And part of that is just being guilty of working in a small nonprofit and probably not having as much time to give Teresa as she even wanted. So she's the master on this.
There
Yeah,
are other, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say I would certainly echo what Kim was saying, and my role I think was to be really a resource and provide insights into laws as they apply to the treatment of equines, the status of horse slaughter in the United States and the still significant number of horses that are exported to Canada and Mexico to be butchered for their meat. So kind of to provide, I think, some of those details that can help provide framing, I think, um, you know, for the many different types of situations that were being discussed throughout the course of the documentary. But yeah, it was very interesting filming, of course, during the pandemic, the height of the pandemic. But Teresa did a tremendous job of making us, I think, all feel really welcome and an integral part of the process.
One of the folks that plays a major role in the film is the Colorado Horse Rescue, and we found an Iraqi vet there, and we cover his whole story. And there are many, when you own a horse and when you get to know horses, you understand that they have a very quiet, healing presence. If you really do get to know them and you really do get to speak their language. And so we tell the story of this Iraqi vet who met this horse that was going to be thrown away. She was a huge, I forget what breed she is. I don't know if she was a quarter horse. She was very mistreated and was going to be put down. And they purchased her at an auction. And Brett Sanko, who was the Iraqi vet, they put the two of them together, and it was two people. I mean, you can imagine he was an Iraqi vet, so you can imagine the difficulty that he was having with life, back in the States. And this horse who would just as soon kill anybody as, people don't realize that we are predators and horses are prey. I might as well be an alligator with a rope coming up to that horse and saying, "Here, let me put this around your neck. I promise I won't eat you today." And that's why horses, when they haven't been treated well by human beings, uh, they react the way they do. And there's a story in the movie about what happens with these two. and they totally bond, and it totally melts both of them. I'm still in communication with Brett, and he started out riding her on trails and stuff, and now he's using her. He rescued another horse, and he's using her as the trail pack horse, and she is happy and wonderful, and it's wonderful to see that result. Um, and that's with the Colorado Horse Rescue. They were incredible. They let us in. They let us in fully to film different stories there.
So in your film, I noticed you got to touch on a lot of different horse subjects. Is there anything that you wish you had gotten to, or is there anything that you want to fully explain more, or you think you got
Oh,
everything?
oh no, no, of course. I would say, okay, my computers now, when I started Keiko, the very first film computer I had was, I think, like 100 gigs. Right now, because it was way back in 2010, uh, I now have probably 100 terabytes of footage. And I would say about 80% of the footage that we shot is on the floor, but could be made into a TV series because there were stories that we really wanted to cover, but the movie was getting too long, and we had to no, we're done now. There were stories that we wanted to cover, but hopefully the movie will be successful enough that we'll get to do a series on Amazon Prime, um, so that we can bring those stories in. So I have an enormous storage of horse stories that we didn't get to cover.
That's fantastic to know. Kim,
I kind
Joanna,
of, yeah, I
as
kind of might pigtail on this in that, like, so I've been in the veterinary side for a long time, but then in the last 15 years of doing the rescue, and these law enforcement cases, I would think that we had seen it all. Every situation is pretty complex and different. And so I think there's probably, I mean, there's some general buckets and categories you can throw them in as to why these horses end up in dangerous, neglectful spots. But you could probably tell the story for decades, Teresa, and we wouldn't run out of new reasons, unfortunately.
Yeah, I love the story of Brett and Amira that you just brought up, Teresa. And that example I think was also really terrific at showing again the tremendous work that rescues put into rehabilitating horses. So, Sarah, the trainer who's featured in the film, obviously has a very demanding, job of like this. I think Amira was a horse who I believe was picked up at auction and probably would have gone to slaughter otherwise.
Yes, she
She was
was.
able to train that horse and get that horse to the point where she obviously has a wonderful life with Brett, and his story is so inspiring too. So, it's really it sometimes does take a village, I guess, so to speak, right? And that's a good example of that. And one thing I would add, that folks might be interested in who see the documentary, there certainly are efforts underway, at the federal level to, for instance, pass a bill, federal legislation that would prohibit the slaughter of American horses for human consumption, namely their export, like I alluded to earlier, abroad, to slaughterhouses. So definitely encourage folks to look into those sorts of issues if they're interested, take action. You can always write to your legislators and make sure that this is a concern that they know matters to people. And I think it really does. We consistently hear that, from offices. They do hear from constituents on the treatment of horses, and they know that that is something that people genuinely care a lot about, and rightfully so. So, like I said, the SAFE Act, the Save America's Forgotten Equine Act, is a bill in Congress that would protect horses from being shipped to slaughter.
One other thing
Yeah,
too, I think that makes horses unique because, we all love animals. We're all aware of different plights that they get into. But I feel like horses are stuck in this middle ground. I mean, they've had partnerships with humans for years. They helped us build our industry, our farms, went to war with us. But then legally they are categorized as livestock, and the laws and the protections for that for livestock versus for companion animals like dogs and cats and other pets are nowhere near as strong. And so that puts them in this weird jeopardy spot because a lot of people have an emotional connection and love for them, but just as they would their dog or their cat, but they are not protected like that. And so that's where we get into some really, really kind of ugly situations with them.
And that's probably one of the many key reasons that I wanted the public to know about. There were a lot of things when I did this film that I didn't know, and then when I met Kim, I went, "Oh, we're going to follow that." And that led us to Joanna, and it led us to Catherine Gregory at the Colorado Horse Rescue, so that people don't know that. As a child, I'm old, I'm really old. And as a child, I remember my mom sending me down to Safeway to get a horse steak. And I remember bringing it home and eating this was, so I was going to ask Joanna, when did eating horse meat be, become like against the law in the United States? Do you remember that?
Yeah, well, I guess you could say officially horse slaughterhouses closed in the US. I believe it was 2007 when the last one closed. There was one left in Illinois, two in Texas. Um, there were a number of different reasons, including some legal challenges as to why they closed, but I would say kind of a quick overview as to why you no longer have horse slaughter facilities operating here in the US is there are annual provisions that are passed each year by Congress in spending legislation that prohibit the commercial slaughter of horses here domestically for their meat. So those are passed year after year by Congress, and that blocks horse slaughter from occurring here in a commercial capacity here on U.S. soil. But their export to Canada and Mexico that remains legal. About 20,000 horses were exported to Canada and Mexico last year to be slaughtered there, and that is a sharp decline. So to put that in perspective, I believe the height of the export numbers were around 2012 when 166,000 American horses were exported to Canada and Mexico. And as you noted, Teresa, if you go even further back in time, yes, there were slaughterhouse facilities that did operate in the US. But as I think will come as a shock to, nobody here who's based in the US who happens to be tuning in, there's not really currently any kind of demand among the average American consumer to eat horse meat because they are regarded as companion animals by a lot of people. They're not regulated as food animals. Obviously, that's an important point too, because horses are routinely given a wide range of medications and substances that are actually expressly prohibited by the FDA for use in meat products. So, there's a lot of reasons why across the board, demand is essentially non-existent here in the US, but their export to slaughterhouses abroad does continue, although, like I said, there has been a big decline in those numbers as well, fortunately. So hopefully that provides some context on when horse slaughter kind of stopped here on the US soil.
I always thought it was illegal to eat horses, period. I didn't know there was a time when it was actually legal and
Yeah,
encouraged. Yep.
yeah.
But okay, so this question is for Joanna and Kim. With your respective organizations, would you use a film such as Throwaway Horses for any kind of uh, informational documentary to give to spread through your organization for better awareness?
Definitely. We've kind of been waiting for the film to get through the festival circuit. But for me, I've talked to Teresa a little bit about this. I think it's somehow figuring out a way to get this in front of youth and the young horse lovers, just because it starts them thinking about owning responsibly and taking care of and what the long-term decisions that they make, how they impact horses. So we will definitely be showing it, hopefully for probably years to come, and getting it in front of people who are new to horses, which honestly is a lot of people because people don't have the opportunity to grow up with them and that knowledge, or their grandparents' farms and um, those things are going away. So that's kind of one of our focus in the upcoming years is really trying to get people who want to learn and want to be around them so that we can kind of make some good owners, and that film would play a pretty important part.
Yeah, no, that was really well said. The only thing I would add is absolutely, we have been using it and will continue to. I think in addition to, our supporters who are interested in equine welfare topics more generally, um, looking forward to making sure that our Homes for Horses Coalition members have an opportunity to see this. And related to that, I haven't seen a documentary that does, I think, a better job of portraying the realities of what equine rescues do. And I think that is so important for people to see and understand that these are, oftentimes small nonprofits operating in their local communities. And I think the work they do, it's just truly tremendous. And as I said, very, very difficult too. So I think having people understand the nature of what folks in equine rescue are doing is wonderful for them to see that, and hopefully that will encourage them to get more involved, whether that's volunteering or, of course, donating. Because yeah, a lot of those groups are really just doing that on the ground work, working with law enforcement as well in these cases. So I think that's, like I said, I don't know of another film that I think really showcases the breadth of what equine rescues do in this country.
We hope to be able to release the film in March, and I'm gearing myself toward March 1st because that's National Horse Protection Day.
Mm.
And so I was going to try to get that organization involved in our movie, and I think that would be a good day to release it. I have the ability to put it out on Amazon Prime because I'm an Amazon Prime independent filmmaker, and also Vimeo. Whether or not we'll be able, I have an agent that has gone to the film market, American film market, and we haven't heard yet if anybody else wants to pick it up, but we're going to release it on March 1st for sure to the public, and they can see it in March on Amazon Prime and Vimeo.
That's exciting. Very
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Yep. So I know we covered a little bit of this before we went live, but I want to give you the opportunity to reiterate about the music and how
Oh,
special it was. Yep.
oh, I've been a musician all of my life, and Cake of the Untold Story for Starfree really fell into my lap because I was a professional musician. I was a critical care nurse for 30 years, but I did professional music to help me recover from my daily work with critical care patients. It was kind of a nice balance, and I met all these incredible musicians, and we wrote all the music for that film. And then when we did this film, Jean-Pierre Garot, who worked on the Keiko film with me, I asked him if he would join me in doing this film. And it was during COVID. And so we had a lot of time. And so he's an incredible, he writes really good music, but we worked on it together. I'm a musician and been a professional musician all my life. We've performed all over the country. And so I was really comfortable with Jean-Pierre. And so during COVID, I would do a sequence with Kim. That's when we first started, and we would start writing a song for a horse that we actually didn't ever make it into the movie. His name was Lincoln, and we wrote a piece called Lincoln. It was that piece was written for Lincoln, but we changed the name of it to, I forget who we used it for, because it fit this other horse too. We couldn't, there were some of the people wouldn't sign our contract, so we couldn't use the footage for Lincoln. We couldn't put Lincoln in the movie, but we wrote the songs. It's another story of a horse named Doc, who had a crippling version of not strangles. What was that joint disease? String halt.
Yeah.
string halts. And so he wrote, I would send him the footage of Doc when they first went to go pick him up, and he could hardly walk. He could hardly walk, and so I sent this footage to Jean Pierre, and he was so moved by it. And then we wrote the song for Doc, and when you look at the credits, there's a song there that says Doc, and it fits his sequence perfectly. We timed his sequence. We were able to time each sequence, like for Amira and for Brett and everybody. We were able to time it because the music was written for them from the sequence. So it was great.
That's amazing. It,
Yeah,
it takes a lot of creativity to
yeah,
match music to a entity, really. So,
me
uh,
too.
okay, I have a question from the audience. It says, thank you for from Kim. Thank you for the film. Anything to mention about filming with horses? The film captured a lot of expression from them. Is there anything special about filming with them? Do the orgs get involved with horse welfare in the film?
Well, here was an interesting thing when I went to go film the horses. In horse world, you don't touch the horse first. You don't have permission to touch a horse until they touch you first. A lot of people don't know that. It's really helped me with dogs a lot when I'm walking down the street. I don't go out and pet them. I wait until they touch me first. With horses, that's a rule. If you come up to a horse and they turn their head sideways, they're not so sure about you. Are you an alligator today? So what happened, and people will notice when they watch my film, in fact, in the opening credits, what happened was they would start coming up to the camera and with their noses and wanting to smell the camera. So I made sure that almost all the horses in the film got their noses right up to the camera, and then the audience can hear them breathing and hear them emoting. And it was kind of fun. There was a little baby horse that came right up to the camera and was nuzzling it, and then finally started breathing on it. It was really fun. So, so yeah, if the horse doesn't see you as a threat, they will follow you anywhere.
Yeah, that's amazing. I
Yeah,
remember growing up, I had a horse in my neighbor's backyard. I would feed it carrots and
yeah,
apples.
yeah,
And, uh, just myself, I've always considered myself a horse person.
yeah.
My astrological sign is of the horse in
Oh,
Chinese calendar. So I've
yeah,
always felt a great empathy with them.
yeah.
But yeah, beautiful animals. It disturbs me to know that, people still eat them in the world, but I mean, culturally, I guess we can't judge, but
Yeah.
that is disappointing. They seem so smart and sentient. It feels wrong.
Some places in the world they eat dolphins, and it's like, oh my gosh, different cultures,
Yep, yep.
My
But
favorite facts about horses is that um, second to humans, horses have the most facial expressions of mammals. And it's kind of hard. I mean, it's hard to teach, I guess. You have to, you can look at a chart and look at their eyes and how they hold their eyes. But once you get to know them, you know all of those things. And just um, there's a lot more communication going on with a horse than I think the average person is aware of. So that's always one of the fun parts for me is like when we bring in new volunteers and they go through a lot of these classes and they learn. Um, you kind of learn to speak horse, right? Or just be
Mhm.
aware of their body movements and their facial expressions. And they're a lot more complex, I think, than most people would imagine.
so I'm one of the types of, I don't say types of horses, but one of the things that I've seen horses do are like the stunt horses in movies. Those are like spectacular what they do. But is it harder to rehabilitate those type of animals or with that kind of training?
That I don't know, and that would be a good one to follow. I know that Hollywood has rules and regulations about what they're allowed to do in training those horses. And, in the Keiko film, Naomi Rose, who's at the animal welfare interest, said that, Keiko or all these whales that are in these things, they need to have a job to do. No, everyone needs to have a job to do, or you just, fade away. So during the training of these horses, they're by law, they're not allowed to do anything that will hurt or harm the horse. So do you know anything more about that, Joanna, about the training of horses for stunts and things? I know that the horses that are treated well would love to do that, would love to do it, but it depends on the trainer and
Yeah,
the
I think
methods
it's
that they.
right. Yeah, it's certainly not an area of expertise for me. I mean, that's right as far as I know that there are certain baseline standards to prevent uh, harming, injuring a horse that's being used. I think you're right, Teresa, that I'm sure it will vary based on the trainers and the training techniques involved as to what those horses might, really be experiencing, whether it's a good situation or a not so good situation. Um, I would agree with what you said, and it's something I've heard a few times from horse owners over the years that I think there's definitely some truth to the notion that, yeah, for a lot of these horses, they like having a job to do. So I think there's definitely merit to that. But yeah, I don't know, too much about the world of horses that are being used in that sort of specific setting, like you said, Jason, like for films. Over the years, there have been, of course, occasions that have been in the news where horses, were seriously injured or killed, or were not treated well. But there are at least supposed to be certain requirements that are adhered to for how they're being treated and used in those sorts of scenarios.
I
I
know
would
this
think
is a.
that those, sorry, I would think that those horses, like to be a stunt horse, they're going to have to be very well trained and trusting of their
Yeah.
human. So I would say the hardest horses that we have to rehab are from owners either that were, maybe they're drug addicts, they have some mental health or some brain injury where that human has been very inconsistent in their life. Like maybe they'd be nice one day and violent or yelling the next. Those are the horses that are hardest to come around because they just have not seen a human be a consistently um, fair person. And I would imagine those stunt horses, to do what they do, they're going to have a lot of trust in people.
I often try to point out to people, even though Naomi, I hear Naomi all the time because I'm anthropomorphic a lot with things. But if somebody came into my home, my stall, or my arena, and tried to force me to do something, I would resist. And before you know it, I'm going to kick that person in the head. It's the same with the horses. I mean, nobody likes to be forced to do anything. If you have a good trainer and a horse trusts you, horses follow in their herd, they follow one leader and only one leader. But if they determine that that leader that they've chosen that day is unkind, unfair, rude, mean, they'll push that horse out and pick a new leader that day, that instant. I wish that's something that we could really learn from them, because and the reason they do that is it's in their DNA and their lives depend on it. So yes, you can force a horse to do anything for a while, but after a while, they're going to end up like a mirror, or they're going to kill you if you try to do something to me again. And that's why some of them get sent to slaughter. So I think people could understand, if somebody comes into your house with a whip and says you have to do this for me or I'm going to whip you, you'll do it right then. But eventually, you're going to find a way to get back at that person. And I don't know, Kim, maybe you agree with that or not. I just think that horses are not far from understanding that. I mean,
I
they
don't know that
feel
they would plot a revenge. I think it's more of
no,
self-preservation. If there's a
yeah.
history of them being harmed, then they see somebody as a threat, then they're just trying to survive.
Well, I was a first time horse owner, and thank goodness I knew nothing. And one thing I did learn is that my horse was very forgiving. So they live in the present moment. And I don't ever go to my horse these days if I'm angry or upset or whatever, because if I go to her and I'm angry and upset or worried, she doesn't know. All she sees is anger and being upset. It's like, oh, you're my leader. Are we supposed to run? Where are we going? And it's like they pick up. They pick up. She knows what kind of a mood I am before I get out of my truck from 70 acres out. Um, so I just it depends on the trainer and how we've all had lots of teachers. I had a teacher in high school that read out of the book the entire semester. Oh my God. And horses, sure, I better have something interesting to do. Boring. um, but I think it's really dependent on the education of the trainer and whether or not they know horse language.
Awesome. So here's a question. So Serafina asks that stays, they love the film, glad to know it will continue to share more stories from it. They want to know, is there a short version or bridge version that can be shared to engage people who may not have the 90 minutes that you had dedicated to the story?
That will probably happen during the time, we have to get this film out. And so once we get it out and, doing a movie, what is it, the saying I heard? Filmmakers don't make, what is it? I don't make films to make money, I make money to make films. Um, um, we have to be able to get some funds back from all the money that we put into it. And then after that, we will be hopefully doing, a TV series on individual horses. Um,
So how did you fund this film? Was it like
from
crowdsourcing?
my retirement. It was from my nursing retirement. I did the same thing with Keiko and I got most of my money back. It's an average cost of a documentary film to a filmmaker is about $350,000, $400,000. And we're there. That's average. That's considered a small budget, believe it or not.
So, so being that as it may, what made you choose the Awareness Festival to host this film?
Oh, it's their mission and their message. Uh, it's their mission and who they are. Um, do you have their mission in front of you? I haven't got it in front of me, but it's what drew me to them.
Yeah.
They're interested in the environment. They're interested in the planet. They were interested in the horses and all of these other things that they covered. In fact, at our screening, they had someone from Jane Goodall organization there to introduce the film. I mean, that's why.
Okay, no. Well, we
Yeah,
appreciate it. We really,
yeah.
we really felt it was a very important part of our festival, and
Oh,
we're
thank you.
grateful that you were there. Uh, Other than that, I mean, okay, so I don't own horses, but if I want to buy a horse, is there like an adoption process like there are for human kids, or is it just I go somewhere and I just give money and I get a horse?
Well, I'll let these two talk about that, but there are places where you can do that. But a reputable rescue organization, particularly a Colorado Horse Rescue, they talk about that at a great length in the film. Whereas they don't, they vet the people, they train the people if they don't have the skills, and they want to make sure that the person who's buying this horse knows basic skills. Can you lead the horse? Can you catch the horse? Can you feed the horse? Can you pick up their feet? For the farrier, can you do basic communication skills with a horse? Really reputable horse rescues do not let a horse go out to just anybody. Now, that doesn't mean you can't go buy a horse at a racetrack for $1 because we cover a person in our film that just did that very thing.
Well, if that should be the standard, if it's not already, I think, because they're
Well,
being
it's not.
responsible. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I would say,
Always, if people are looking to go get a horse and you don't have a good rescue, we do go through a whole process, and it has to be a match. I mean, horses are like people, right? They're individuals and what they excel at, and the type of personalities that they fit with. So in order for that to be a lasting adoption and a forever home, you have to have that. But if people don't have access to that, I think, to me, I might try calling like a local veterinarian and asking them if they know of any trainers that might help them vet horses and find one that is a good match for them. Because if you're really green, and um, I see new owners get taken advantage of all the time, whether they're buying a horse that's lame or a horse that's not trained and is going to hurt them, it's just going to end bad for everybody. So finding that good horseman in your community is the key to everybody being happy and hopefully safe.
yeah, no, that's a good point about first-time horse owners not necessarily understanding or knowing what they might be getting. And I think, for that reason, first and foremost, if possible, I think adopting a horse through an equine rescue is definitely the best option. Um, there's no kind of overall like overarching national accrediting body for equine rescues, but that said, there are a number of separate accrediting organizations, like the Global Federation for Animal Sanctuaries, for example, which has high standards. So, if an equine rescue, for example, is GFAS accredited, that's a good sign. There are other accrediting bodies of that nature. You can certainly do some research, just to make sure that this is a reputable equine rescue, and by and large, yes, they absolutely are. And as Kim and Teresa have noted, they are looking to make sure that that horse is the right fit, it's the right placement. In a lot of cases, these rescues, as part of the agreement with the adopter, they'll say, we can, if there's a situation where you can't take care of that horse anymore, you can bring that horse back to us. So that's obviously a really good indication as well that they obviously care about the welfare of the horse and making sure it's a good fit. So yeah, I mean, there are so many rescues that, like I said, they invest so much in rehabbing these horses who've been through a lot, training them, and then they do end up being able to be, a great forever fit, really, for families who are looking to adopt horses. So I definitely encourage folks to do that as a way to support rescues if they are interested in getting a horse.
Okay, well, thank you for that. It's great information. Um, we kind of have to wrap up here, I think. Is there any last message you want to give to your audience?
Watch the film. It's coming out March the 6th, and I hope you all get to see it. We worked about 4 or 5 years on it, and
Oh,
we hope you get to see it.
absolutely. In regards to that, if there's any kind of how, if there's any kind of way we can contact you,
Oh,
email.
the horse has a website. I mean, the horses have a website. Throwaway Horses has a website. It's called throwawayhorses.com. And we'll be putting up, excerpts from this interview and all the information about when the film will be coming out, and everything that's going on with the movie will end up at the Throwaway Horses. And we also have a Throwaway Horses Facebook page, which we've just getting started.
Nice. If you want to throw any information into the chat so people have a visual
Sure.
record of it, it'll be included with this Q&A, so it'll be able to reach out to more people.
Wonderful. Throwawayhorses.com.
Yep. Okay. But thank you both, Kim, Joanna, for joining us. Thank you, Teresa. Wonderful job. Like
Thank you.
I want to dedicate the time to rewatch this because I did not get to see the entirety of it. But
Yeah.
like I
There's
said,
some fun places in the credits. I always encourage, we like to put fun stories in the credits, and there's some laughter moments in the credits. So
oh, I love a good end credit scene. Marvel
yeah,
has spoiled me. Okay.
yeah. All right.
Kim, Joanna, do you guys have any kind of contact we could do to support your organizations? If you can put that in the
Yeah,
chat,
I can
please.
pop our organization's website in the chat. We have a Take Action Center where we have a number of action alerts on a few different equine welfare issues, including horse slaughter. So yeah, it makes it really easy if you are interested in taking action. It only takes a couple minutes. So I'll pop that in so people can look for that.
Okay, awesome. But once again, thank you so much for joining us. This was a great Q&A in my opinion. And
Thank you.
yep. And yeah, we hope to see future things. And I do hope you get the Amazon Prime Video. That'd be awesome to see.
March 1st.
Okay,
March 1st.
fantastic.
And
Thank
Vimeo
you.
also.
And Vimeo.
Yes.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
Okay. Have a good one,
Bye.
ladies.
Thank you.
Stay warm.
Thank
Stay
you.
dry.
Thank you.